What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you've ever taken on a job that you were dreading to build but in the end ended up enjoying it, hit that thumbs up button. This is definitely one of those jobs, and for me, bunk beds are always one of those jobs. They take a lot of planning and they're never the same, and I'm never, just as a production carpenter, I'm never thrilled about building them, but in the end they're pretty rewarding to see them come together. Some of you may remember a video a while back I did showing how I mocked these up in the shop. I essentially miter folded all these parts at my shop and then take everything to the job site for the final installation. And in this video we're going to highlight the final installation, and I'm going to show you how everything ended up going together. The biggest challenge of this installation was that all of the cross members are to be connected with dominoes. So gluing up this many dominoes as an assembly really created some challenges because there's about probably 80 dominoes in this whole thing. So to glue all of those up at once and get everything tied together was going to be next to impossible. It ended up working out really well. I started the construction of the bunk bed at about 2 o'clock on a afternoon. So I was able to glue up two sides of the bunk bed and then let them cure overnight so that they were nice and solid, which then allowed me to do the rest of the glue up assembly with the dominoes the next morning. Well, guys, it's a new day. Time to try and get this thing put together. I've kind of been going over in my head the best way to assemble this gigantic thing. Two different methods. One would be how I did it in my shop whenever I mocked it up, where I had both of these sections vertically and kind of just put each one of these cross members in one at a time. Could do that, a little bit tedious. I think I'm going to try something different. So I've got one side of the bunk bed. These were assembled yesterday, so one side is down. And I'm going to put all four of these cross sections into their domino slots, glue them, use pinch dogs, which if you're not familiar, you'll see me use these a ton. This is a tool that does something no other tool can do. It will apply clamping pressure in a very small space. So anyways, I'm going to use pinch dogs to put these four on, tip it up, and then assemble it into the other side. Whenever I put my dominoes into the slots on this other side, I went ahead and I took 12 dominoes and I took the sander to them so that I sanded off the corners, so hopefully they will slide into the mortise a lot easier and it'll be a little bit easier to get things aligned. So we'll see how this goes. I'm sure it'll be interesting. I knew that it would be pretty easy to glue up and assemble the first four pieces onto this larger section that's laying on the floor here, because I could essentially just use my body weight to push the pieces onto the dominoes and squeeze out the glue, and then throw some pinch dogs on it to give it that final squeeze and hold it together. The real challenge was going to be once I tilted it up and had to align the rest of the dominoes to the remaining piece. So then what I'm doing here is adding those dominoes that I gave some special attention to and sanded the ends on to give them a little bit of a taper and help everything come together a little bit better. So now we're at the moment of truth. This is the point where if my domino slots are not lined up, I've already got glue on everything, so it's going to turn into a really bad day. Pretty simple, just to tilt it up, and then the real fun begins. It was absolutely essential to have my bessey clamps nearby. They were an absolute lifesaver. Well, that was certainly interesting. So thankfully it went together decently well, no major hiccups. So it's all glued and clamped right now. I want to leave these clamps on it for a little while just to give that glue sufficient time to really grab a hold before I start pushing it around. I got this panel. I have everything pre-cut, so I got a panel that's going to go on here and the stairs will go up the side. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that in. Started filling some of the pinch dog holes with some wood filler just because it leaves a pretty big hole and the painters only hit it once, so sometimes it's nice to pre-fill those in advance. I had to add this panel in here because I needed something for the stair going up to the top bunk to go up against. I'm using an accented joint here, which means I just slightly sand the corners on all the pieces that butt up against each other. The painter will lightly caulk that and then paint it, and it'll look really nice. It's a lot better than trying to make this joint perfectly invisible, which is next to impossible on something like this. Something I knew would potentially be an issue was that whenever basically the wall's not being perfectly square, and I've got this drywall corner bead to contend with. So right now I'm tied up against this wall here, but that creates a gap over here, and I knew this was going to happen to a degree. So I'm gonna trace the line on the top of these cross members and take that drywall out right there. That way it can go kind of into the drywall and stay square. I do have this thing all fastened to the walls now. You can see here I had to take out that drywall to get it so that I could be tight on my sides all the way around. Then I took some really long lag screws and I've got this thing lagged into the wall, and that helped pull everything tight. Also, see lags here, pulled that tight, down there, pulled that tight. Nothing a little caulk won't fix. Try to avoid caulking when possible, but thankfully it is paint grade, and it is what it is on this one. Status update, guys. It's about 3 o'clock, so plugging along here. Bunk bed, a lot happened this morning. Got the bunk bed in positions, fastened to the wall. I got those upper pieces in. The posts being lower doesn't matter because the crown's gonna wrap around. And if I bring you around here, you can see on the inside, whenever I installed those, the corners actually cover the post. So that's no big deal, it'll just be finished off like that. Also, they wanted shelves in this niche, so added a shelf there, plugged the bottom on the underside here, and then another shelf on the bottom down here. As you can see, I had to get a little funky, taking all that drywall out, but a little touch up and we'll be good to go. But I mean, this is sitting in about 5/16 inside that drywall to make that work, just with the walls not quite being square or just corner bead mud and all that stuff. Also, this air returned before it was running the other way, so I fixed that. Pretty impressive patch job, I feel like. So crown will actually cover almost all of that. So that'll be good to go. And what I'm working on right now is these steps, which will go up. So I drew everything out on both sides. And what I'm getting ready to do now is nail on my risers, and then I'll nail on my treads. That'll be done, and then I'll put the slats inside this thing, and then I got to cap the underside of this one with a sheet of plywood. Well, here we are again, guys. It's a new day. Usually I don't have videos that go over multiple days, but I'm at about a day and a quarter of time on installing this at this point. So this morning I just got to the job site and just have a few things to do to wrap this thing up. Cleaned everything up in here yesterday. It was a disaster. Got my stairs in yesterday. Really happy with how that came together. So now I need to put the slats in. I've got all these slats. I pre-cut them in the shop, and these were offcuts from the 16-foot pieces that I used to make these posts. So pretty simple. I just lined all these up, measured this space right here, divided it by 8, and cut a couple spacer blocks so I'll have a nice even spacing pattern for those. Now, the homeowners want the underside of this to be capped off with plywood. That way, as you're looking up, you're not staring at the underside of these slats. So I'll show you what I did there. Most of these slats are just flat 1x4. But the way I constructed this with these large beams, I fastened a 1x2 to the inside. So in order to cap the underside of this, I had to make like a T-brace so that I can set these in, and then I'll be able to staple my plywood to the underside of this and the underside of these. So that's what I'm doing now. The next thing I'm doing here is using PL Premium, running a bead all the way around the perimeter and across those T-braces. Then I'm using a 22 gauge stapler to staple this to the underside. 22 gauge stapler is nice on 1/4 inch plywood like this because it gives decent holding power and it leaves a small enough cross whenever you staple it into the plywood that the painter can easily fill it, and it's really not a big deal. No different than using a typical brad nail. So that's it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. I'm happy how this turned out. Gave the clients what they wanted and didn't have any major screw-ups throughout the process, and that's always a good thing. If you've got any questions, drop them in the comment below. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe for future videos like this, and we'll see you on the next one.